banks. I mean, whenever you report a crime, because fraud is a crime, whenever you've been defrauded, whatever the case is, you have to show that you've taken steps through the SA listing. And the only difference, and I think we can touch on that, the only difference is how long it remains on the bureau.
Lovely. Let's talk about that. How long does the red flag or the worst case scenario, the blacklisting, how long then does it last in your name?
So it lasts until you pay, right? Okay. For as long as you don't pay, you would remain listed on the bureau.
Oh.
However, the difference is if you are listed as bad payer, or if you are listed as being in arrears for a certain account. However, the creditor who owns that account has not instituted legal action against you. This is when our prescription also comes in.
Right.
Is that if for a period of 3 years, the creditor has not enforced its rights, you are listed as a bad payer or as being in arrears for that particular account. If the creditor has not enforced its rights, that debt would eventually then prescribe after 3 years.
Okay.
Because the test for prescription, or what interrupts prescription in our circumstances, would be the institution of legal action.
Okay.
So once summons is instituted and served on you, and you still don't pay, then you can't come after 3 years to say, well, it's been over 3 years. I haven't paid, this debt should have prescribed. No, because the creditor has informed you that you are indebted to them, and they have exercised rights to attempt to recover the debt through the legal process.
During that 3-year period. Which means they've interrupted prescription.
Yes.
Which means then that 3-year period is actually going to fall away because it's actually going to move up some more because prescription has been interrupted by the creditor sending you a summons.
Correct.
Okay.
And you may find, and it happens a lot where there's a debt you haven't been servicing, you haven't been receiving calls, but just before it prescribes, you get summoned.
Yes.
Because the creditor is also aware that should they not act on this debt, they would actually lose on the right to recover the debt legally.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about receiving the summons. Now, let's say I actually didn't receive your summons. For one reason or another, I don't live at the rental property anymore. I don't live at the property where I wrote that this is my address when I first entered into the contract with that particular creditor.
Yeah.
Can they still say, yes, you did receive that summons? If I say, but I moved, I didn't get it, I moved.
So there's a lot of facets to this question because the first one is the address that the creditor sends the summons to. That address is an agreed address in terms of your contract that you would have signed.
Okay.
You would have informed them that this is my legal, we refer to it as a domicilium citandi et executandi, which basically means it's the address that I elect to receive legal documents.
Okay.
So if there's a change, and most agreements cater for this, if there's a change, it's your duty to inform the creditor that I no longer live here. This is where I live.
Okay.
However, and also, the legal process is governed by our uniform rules of court.
Right.
Now, uniform rules of court state exactly what should be in a summons, how summons should be served, etc. Now, with the summons can be served on you personally as the debtor.
Yep.
They can be served anywhere on the property which you elected. They can be put in a post box. They can be served on a 16-year-old who is at the premises. Let's say you are not there.
Yes.
But if there's someone there who's 16 years or older at the premise, the summons can be served on that person. They can be, we had a lot of instances where they are put under a rock. If there's no gates, put on a tree. So the only thing that the creditor has to show is that the summons was served at the elected address.
Okay.
And it was served by way of all the available means as stated in the uniform rules of court. Right?
So whether you are there or not, whether you moved or not, that's immaterial. As long as the creditor can prove that he delivered the summons in the right lawful way to the address that you have put. Whether you moved or you're no longer there, or that is not their problem, because you were supposed to have informed them that, look, I've moved, or whatever the situation is, right?
Yeah. So I'll expand on this when we discuss foreclosures, because the law has been slightly changed.
Okay.
In those instances as well.
Okay.
But
this is hectic.
But there's nothing stopping because you, and the question then I would have in your scenario is, at what point? So you're saying in this scenario, I'm going back to the creditor to say, well, I didn't receive this. Is this after judgment has been obtained?
No,
because when would I have gotten knowledge of the summons if I didn't receive it? Because if I didn't receive it, I obviously won't defend it, and judgment would be obtained without my knowledge.
Correct.
However, if I am applying for credit elsewhere, and then I am informed that, hey, there's judgment against you regarding such and such account, and then at that point I go back to creditor A to say, there's judgment against me, I never received any summons. There are legal processes that you can follow, and because you can get that judgment rescinded.
Okay.
Basically states that where judgment is obtained without your knowledge or consent, well, not consent, but without your knowledge, then you can apply to court to have the judgment rescinded.
Yeah.
If you believe that there is, in terms of there was an error in granting that judgment for one or two or more reasons,
Okay.
But it's not a guarantee that the judgment will be rescinded, because as I said, if the creditor can show that, well, we rescinded, we served our papers in terms of what is prescribed in law, and we served it on the elected address.
And that's it.
Yeah. But it all depends at the end of the day on arguments in court.
Right. Okay, so let's get into I'll call it the sympathy card. So I genuinely have lost my job. I genuinely have been kicked out of my rental property. I'm now back living with my mom. It's rough. I actually don't have the means to pay back this debt. Like, you can sue me all you want, but I have nothing but the clothes on my back. How does one navigate in that situation where even if you go to them, guys, I really don't have the money. What are your options in that situation?
So the first thing, don't wait till it's too late.
Okay.
So don't wait until legal action has been instituted.
Very important.
Yeah. The best thing you can do, before the debit order date that, you know what, I'm not going to make it. So the best thing anyone can do in that situation is to contact the creditor directly.
Hold on right there. You remember, guys, I made a video on this. I said, you must go and present yourself to your creditor. Continue.
Yeah. So you contact the creditor directly, and it's better for you for various reasons.
Yeah.
Once lawyers are involved, there are legal fees as well that are added to your debt. Because me as a creditor, you are forcing me to appoint lawyers. I'm not gonna just pay these lawyers and not recover these fees. I have to recover them from you.
Okay.
So your debt is always accumulating because of legal fees. And you don't want to talk to a third party who is a lawyer who just wants to execute on the mandate that they've been given.
Right.
You want to talk to your creditor to say, I've been paying for 2-3 years. I've really hit a bad patch. And one thing we shouldn't underestimate is that our creditors are aware of the economy that we're in.
They are also human.
Yeah.
They really are.
They see it.
Yeah.
They see it in terms and the one thing is you are not the only one in your position.
Correct.
Right? So they can see within their books that we've got a greater population of people who are either short paying, who are paying late, or who are not paying at all. So you are not in isolation. When they are looking at the entire portfolios, they can see that there is something that is affecting our people. Right. And they can't come and guess whether or not, okay, you are one of those who will default or whatever the case is. I mean, some of them do have, with AI now, they do have those capabilities of calling you even before you default to say, we see in the past few months, you've been paying, but we see some trends in your banks. Actually, banks have that ability. So we've been seeing some trends.
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
How can we help you?
And not all of them, but some of them do that.
Okay.
Because they, on their side, they trying to close off on their non-performing books, and they don't want you to be non-performing. They're trying to see how they can assist you before you become non-performing.
Okay, so you can, number one, you can go and talk to them.
Yeah.
Right, lovely. Let's say then you don't talk to them and you decide maybe you're just too scared to approach a big company and say, I have a problem. What are the other options that you have?
So, I mean, there's debt review.
But debt review is an option.
Debt review is an option where they consolidate your debts and you end up paying one installment instead of paying 10.
Okay.
It's reduced installments. It's over a period of time.
Okay.
So that's an option.
But it also has its pros and cons, right?
Like everything.
Lovely. So that's the second option. Do you have a third option?
No, it's speak to your creditor, go for debt review. If you are quiet and legal action has been instituted, you can still speak to your creditor.
Okay.
So at any point within the legal process, there's nothing stopping you from picking up your phone and calling the company to which you are indebted to. There are a lot of options that I will share when we discuss foreclosures. But this is just for your unsecured loans.
Oh, okay. All right. So when a person applies for a loan and they fill in the wrong information on the form or on purpose, they just write the wrong address because they are aware that you're going to send a summons and they don't want that situation. What would be the consequences of that?
It's very naughty.
It is. But it happens.
It happens. And sometimes you feel that the amount you're earning is too little. Maybe you won't get the 200,000 that you want, so you just add a zero to what you're earning on your pay slip or on your bank statements. The thing is, if you're applying for credit with the financial institution, they talk to each other.
Okay.
Right? So if you're applying at Bank A, you're bringing your bank statement from Bank B to say, here's my bank statement from Bank B. I'm applying for whatever loan you're applying for, whatever credit facility you're applying for. If the bank, because through their systems, they can pick up on a lot of anomalies, right? If they pick up on an anomaly, they actually contact Bank B to say, listen, I've got a bank statement that appears to be from your company. Can I send it to you? Can you confirm whether it's correct?
Okay.
That bank, if it's incorrect, they will say, yeah, there've been a lot of amendments. It's been rigged. This is not our document.
Okay.
Similarly, with the payslip, they contact the company to say, we've got this payslip. And the thing that us lay people don't understand is that even with things like payslips, there are a lot of glaring items, right? I can just change my income, my CTC, and say, this is my CTC. However, if this is my CTC, my pay as you earn has to be amended. The tax has to be amended. The medical, all these benefits, because it has to align.
Correct.
Right. And sometimes we don't know, as lay people, we don't know how to do that.
Correct.
Right. So it's easy for a bank to pick it up. Now, when a bank does pick those things up, it's not let's say you don't get the loan because the documents are basically fraudulent.
They don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is, given that in our financial system, there's a lot of emphasis against pushing back on fraud.
Okay.
There is a company that is, or an organization that is called the South African Fraud Prevention Services.
Right.
We call it the SAFPS in short.
Mm-hmm.
So all financial institutions are members of the SAFPS. Now, what the SAFPS is, it's basically a repository. If me as a bank A pick up something on an individual, I note it on the SAFPS.
Okay.
That means all financial institutions, when they pull up your ID number,
they know about your stuff.
If you decline me and I go to Bank B will pull up the ID number. They already see that, oh no, they've been listed for misrepresentation, for fraud.
Oh.
Because the definition of fraud that is used in the SAFPS system or in those kind of matters is the misrepresentation of fact. It's the misrepresentation of documents.
Right.
For in credit applications,
Yeah.
which has the potential to prejudice the bank.
Okay.
Because the bank would be prejudiced if they give you credit based on fraudulent documents.
Okay.
Because you won't be able to pay.
Right.
Now, the repercussions, it's not that you are just listed there and everyone can see, but you are listed there for 10 years.
Sure.
So for 10 years, you won't be able to get credit anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's really, really serious because I think far too often we actually don't know what happens in the background, the systems, the clever systems that the banks have and that the credit lenders have in the background. And the fact that those institutions talk to each other is even worse. So I can't walk from bank A to bank B or to credit lender. Now that I'm going to remove the banks, they are too sophisticated. Now I'm going to go to credit lenders. If they know what they're doing, they will also have access to this level of information about you, right?
Yeah. So it's not all, I mean, and I'm glad you mentioned credit lenders because it's not all of them who are members of the SAFPS. It's because it's mostly all the big financial institutions.
Okay.
There are some, even insurance companies are members.
Okay.
Any company that provides services of a financial nature can be members of the SAFPS, but they can also opt out.
Okay.
So it depends on the institution because the risk of opting out is you may be granting credit to
somebody who's not going to be able to pay you anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then lastly on that, it's not only for noting of fraudulent activities, but it also helps the public. So for example, there is a rise of identity fraud in South Africa.
True. There are many situations where people lose their identification documents, right? They lose their phones, they lose their wallet. The wallet has an ID, the wallet has a driver's license. The wallet has basically a lot of information about your life.
Yeah.
What do people then do with that information?
So that is, I'll tell you what fraudsters do with the information.
Right.
But I'll also tell you what you should do once you have lost it.
Okay.
So given the rise or the increase in identity theft, what fraudsters do now, what we see that they do is that they get your ID book or ID documents. They then apply online for an account at some bank. Let's say at that bank you already have a banking profile, for example. Because the fraudster would have entered your correct ID document, they may have submitted your correct ID document as well. It's easy for your account now to be linked to for this newly opened account by a fraudster to be linked to your existing profile, which means they have access to your money.
Oh my gosh.
Right. But what others do is that they open a completely new account in your name and they start building credit. So what this means is every month they will deposit 10,000 and say it's a salary, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. And then at some point, they will go and apply for a loan. Now, the bank sees that, okay, this person has been receiving a salary. Maybe they take out, a small debit order, some insurance or whatever.
Yeah.
They've been receiving a consistent salary. There's debit orders going off.
Yeah. There's a good record.
There's a good record. Let's give them 200,000.
Okay.
Right. When that happens, they're obviously not going to pay for the loan. They take the money, they use it as quickly as possible. You don't pay now for this loan that is in your name. The next thing you realize is that you have been blacklisted because you have a 200,000 loan that you have not been paying, that you don't know anything about. Then you remember that I had lost my ID a few months ago or whatever the case is. So that's the potential of fraud that can happen
in your name without your knowledge. So that's how one can actually be blacklisted without your knowledge.
Yes. Yeah. So how to avoid that?
Lovely. Tell us how to avoid that situation.
And it's really simple. If you lose those documents, ID and driver's license, the same South African Fraud Prevention Service, that can assist you. So you register yourself. They call it protective registration. So you just register, you call them, you contact them, you can get them on the internet, and you state your case that this is my ID number, so-and-so. I lost it on this date. I am not in possession of this ID at this point. Now, similar to how financial institutions can see when you have been a perpetrator of fraud once you are listed on it, if someone tries to apply for credit in your name using your ID number, once the bank types in that ID number, they can see that this person has been registered to have lost their ID.
You reported it with the what's the entity name?
South African Fraud Prevention Service.
Okay, so you can go onto that website and register yourself as having lost it. Tell me, is it as good as going to the police station and doing an affidavit to say, on this date, last week Friday, I lost my ID, this is my ID number, etc., and these were the circumstances. Is that good enough, or is it important to register? So
for you to register, you must have reported it officially at the police. Because for there to be action. Remember, our crime prevention is our police force.
Yes.
So whenever there's been whenever you have been a victim of theft or wwhatever the case is, you report the crime to the police.
Okay.
Now, when you are reporting to these to this entity in particular, you are just, because they would need proof.
Okay.
Because there are people, or there are instances where people, for one reason or another, because it can be reversed, right?
Correct.
To say, let me just say I didn't apply for this loan.
Yes.
And maybe you did.
Yes, because here we are educating people and giving them this level of information to do the right thing with it.
Yeah.
But then some people then could easily want to do the exact opposite, right?
Okay, let me apply for this.
And we don't advocate for that on Mamolao. We don't advocate for that. We give you the information so that you can protect yourself from potential fraudsters, right?
Yeah, and that's why even with banks, whenever you report a crime, because fraud is a crime, whenever you've been defrauded, whatever the case is, you have to show that you've taken steps through the SAPS, and you have you depose an affidavit, and an affidavit is actually an oath. Do you know that? And because people generally, they just think you're just writing this on a paper, it will be stamped. It's similar to you standing in court under oath to say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. If you are in court and you don't say the truth, you can be obviously charged with contempt and you can be imprisoned.
Correct.
That is similar to an affidavit.
Okay.
If you lie on an affidavit, you can be imprisoned.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that is a lot right there, because people must take things like affidavits seriously. Yes. You can't just play around. South African police services have a job to do, and they are doing their job under particular laws, right? Yes. So when you do an affidavit and you register it at the Fraud Prevention Services, you are actually swearing on a certain truth.
Yes.
Your truth, right? So that you can protect yourself from fraud being happening in your name and that kind of thing. So tell me, apart from losing your your identification documents, your ID or your license, and then you can report that, like you said, to the police and then to the fraud services. What about losing your phone? What would be the consequences there, and what would one need to do?
Yeah. So with your phone, the first thing that is generally accepted that people do is that they contact the service provider and they block their SIM cards.
Right.
But with the phones, remember, we have our banking apps on our phones.
Correct.
And those need to be blocked. More than the SIM card actually needs to be blocked.
Right.
So it's important that if you lose your phone, you report it to your bank.
Okay.
So that the bank can disable your profile.
Okay.
Because it's easy for fraudsters to gain, even if your SIM card is blocked, they can still gain access to your app because most of these apps are Wi-Fi enabled. So you can just use it they can just get a Wi-Fi network. Your phone is on, try out they have ways of finding out your pins.
Okay. So
don't save your bank pin on your phone.
Okay.
That's the first thing.
Obviously.
And don't share it with any other pin, because you may have a pin that is saved on your phone for any other apps, like your these grocery shops apps and stuff like that. And if you share your bank pin with any of these other apps, they can also get hold of it, and they can gain access to your account.
So same process. You report it to your bank, you report it to the police, and then you still register that information on the fraud services.
So no. So with the lost phones, no, that's not registered on the fraud prevention.
Okay.
Because the fraud prevention is simply for application fraud.
Okay.
So that is different and distinct from someone defrauding you. So the fraud prevention is to avoid our financial institutions being defrauded by fraudsters.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So you doing the other stuff with your phone is you protecting yourself. Essentially. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's all we have for this segment. Thank you for tuning in to Mamolao. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell for more of this educational legal content. Make sure that you comment, guys. I want to hear from you. And also ask questions, because I want to hear those too.